And then I just really want people to know there's a difference. There is a really, really big difference between questioning God and asking God questions. And there's nothing wrong with asking God questions. You can ask him, why did it happen to me? But you don't have to say it, in a way that you're lamenting and you're being angry with God for this. I'm Olympia, a mother, entrepreneur, and cancer thriver. This is my side of the story. I was in a space where I wanted to clear my head. So pretty much what ended up happening was a friend of mine passed. And after her passing, it was a serious blow. Reason being, I had never really lost anyone close to me. Every time someone passes away, I usually, I'm sympathetic, empathetic. However, it was always a, life goes on type of situation for me. So I was never really in the moment. That one actually put me in the moment, and I didn't think it would do that. I actually thought that I would be able to bounce back and I would just go on living life. So between September and November, I decided to take a brief hiatus from Instagram and social media. And I just wanted to I wanted to clear my head. I wanted to be in a moment where I just could focus on what I had going on in my life. I wanted to take time to grieve. Like I said, I didn't know what that process truly entailed. So that is pretty much where my head was. I was trying to, I had just recently moved as well. My daughter had just gone off to college. So it was really, really a transitional period for me. And I didn't know, like I said, I didn't know how it was going to really, really affect me. I can't say that it was empty nest syndrome, but we moved from one state to another. My daughter was in college. I lost a loved one. So a lot of different emotions were going on. Well, in December of 2022, I decided to go ahead and have a mammogram and sonogram done. I was 40 years old. It was time. I had never had one before. I was having really, really, really bad headaches. I could feel lumps in my breast, my left breast. And so I decided to just go for it. What's the worst that could happen? I had heard so many people talk about, benign fibroids. So I thought, okay, that's it. However, I went and had my mammogram and ultrasound, and it was, I want to say maybe a week before Christmas. And I was getting ready to travel, and the doctor, he told me that they would have to do a biopsy, well, several biopsies, in order to determine or rule out the possibility of cancer. And I didn't want to hear that. I did not want to hear the C word. I didn't want to even think about it. But he told me that, I told him that I was traveling. So he told me, go ahead and travel. And when you come back, we'll schedule the biopsies. And that's pretty much what ended up happening. I took a little bit of time to call them back. I got back at the end of December. But I didn't call them back until January. I can't remember. It was after the holidays. However, I ended up getting scheduled on the 15th. So I went in for my biopsy on the 15th. They found one lump in the right, and there were 4 lumps in the left and in my lymph node. So we did the biopsies on the 15th. On January 17, 2023, I was diagnosed with positive breast cancer. Initially, I was just numb. I am not the type of person that actually, like, I hear bad news and I take a while before I actually react. I don't usually have an instant reaction. So all the nurses and the doctor, they were looking at me and waiting for me to flip out. And I actually didn't. Because to be honest with you, I didn't understand. I wanted to take time to go home, consult with my brother. He's a doctor, so I wanted to speak with him and see what he knew about it. I wanted to actually, maybe go on Google. I didn't want to do too much Googling because I didn't want to scare myself, but I went on Google. I consulted with my brother and we talked it over. And it wasn't until the next day, January 18th, the next morning I woke up and you know how the rhythm is, okay? We call it the rhythm around here. The rhythm pretty much, first video I saw on Instagram when I got up was a video where a lady was at the barbershop and she was getting her hair cut off, and that was fine. It wasn't until the barber cut his hair off that I bust out in tears. I just was uncontrollably crying. My son was at school, my daughter is in college, so luckily it was just me at the house and I could do that. And I just bust out crying. It was the only time that it became real. Like I said, I have a delayed response to things, so therefore it became real when I saw that video on Instagram. And I cried. Well, I told Evan, my son, I told him pretty much that day. I told him, I said, well, Ev, mom is diagnosed with breast cancer. And he asked me a simple question. And the question was, are you going to die? And I pretty much told him, no, this is not going to be the thing that takes me out. I decided that I was going to fight for my kids, fight for my own life. I wanted so much more. There's so much more in life that I want to achieve. There's so much that I want to do. So I was able to, in that moment, tell him, when I was a kid, and I told him this, I said, when I was a kid, a song that I used to always sing at church with my dad, it was like one of my favorite songs, is he's still working on me to make me what I ought to be. It took him just a week to make the moon and the stars, the sun and the earth, and Jupiter and Mars. How lovely and patient he must be, because he's still working on me. So I told my son at that moment that cancer was not going to kill me, but I would die. We had always talked about death. He has this thing where he understands that you're born, you live, you die, and no one knows their time. So he understood that, but I assured him that this was not going to be the thing that killed me. It might be a little unorthodox, but I had my brother. Like I said, he knew. And like I said, he's a doctor, so he would be able to explain everything. So what I did was I waited a little while until I had more information from the doctors here. And then I relayed that information. Everything that I was getting, I was feeding it to my brother. And we waited until we had enough information, until it was solid, to go ahead and tell my mother and my sister. And we did that on a WhatsApp video call with all four of us. And I had my brother tell my family, and they had their questions and whatnot, and I let him answer those because I truly didn't know the answers myself. When I broke the news to my family, again, like I said, it was a conference call with my sister and my mother. And my mother was speechless. She could not believe it. She actually put the phone down. We started laughing. we started laughing. I know this is a serious matter, but we started laughing just based off her reaction. And my sister actually was quiet as well. But that was pretty much it at that moment. It was shock. It was a lot of questions going through their heads, I'm sure. It was not knowing what to say. It was disbelief. It was acceptance. And like I said, at that point, it was just a somber moment. The doctors wanted to do more testing to determine the stage. We did not know exactly what stage it was initially. All we knew that it was HER2 positive, and it was in my left breast. There were 2 lumps in the left breast that were positive, and there was 1 in the lymph node. So we knew that it was HER2 positive, but we didn't know the staging. So I had to go through a series of CT scans, PET scans, MRIs, and different things like that in order to determine the stage. I was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer after all the testing. I ended up sitting with my medical oncologist, and she wanted me to know that despite of the stage, we were going to go ahead and still treat it aggressively, because typically when you're stage 4, you're written off. Most people don't get the level of treatment that I receive once they are stage 4. Usually someone tries to tell them go try a holistic approach, but there's not much that is offered when you're stage 4. But in my particular case, because I was only 40 years old, they told me they would treat me aggressively, and that entailed chemotherapy, 6 rounds, for about 8 hours a day, 8 hours each time, sorry. Then after that, there was going to be the mastectomy and also radiation. So that's what my treatment consists of. I've already had the chemotherapy. I've already done the double mastectomy, and next up is radiation. So as with any medication that you take, there are side effects, mine included, hair loss being the number 1, because 3 of the medications that I was taking included hair loss as a side effect. That was a guaranteed. I also was taking a shot called Neulasta, and that shot caused a lot of bone pain because it was helping my body produce white blood cells to fight off any infections. So that caused bone pain and some muscle aches. I also had a loss in taste. There was metallic taste. When I could taste anything, everything tasted metallic. The steroids that I were taking caused me to gain weight. Because I had like a huge increase in appetite. Other than that, I didn't have any nausea. I did have a lot of fatigue. I did sleep a lot. Other than the loss of taste and the fatigue, most of my side effects wore off within a week and a half. So a week and a half, I'd say about 8 to 10 days after chemo is when I would experience the worst of it. And then the fatigue, that lasted all throughout. And I was still going though. The thing is, throughout the whole process, I didn't really have much of a choice to actually just lay down, because I still had to be there for my son. I still had to take him to school, because my family, they would come in, spend a week, 2 weeks max, and go back. So after that, I had to get right back up and do that. With all of that being said, you got to take the good with the bad, or the bad with the good, however it goes, because as a result of all of that, it I'm cancer free, and I still have treatments to go. We're still going to go ahead and treat it so that it lessens my chance of it coming back. However, as of right now, I am cancer free. I went every 3 weeks. So it was 6 sessions every 3 weeks. So my first session was on February 20th, right before my birthday. And then the last one was on June 5th. I still do treatments every 3 weeks. It's not chemo though. What they call them are HER2 blockers. So what that does is it tries to prevent that specific type of cancer. Of course, this thing is never, ever dry cut. It's never just copy and paste. So it does treat that specific type of cancer that I had from coming back. So I still do that every 3 weeks. And that isn't as long as the whole 8-hour session because I'm only doing two parts of the 4 drugs. At the moment is indefinite. They haven't determined a cutoff point for it. Initially, they said that it would be going on for about a year. I think that still stands, but we don't know for sure. The most, initially when I first started just the HER2 blockers, the only side effects I noticed were swelling of my feet. But that quickly went away after the second one. Radiation will take place probably in a few weeks. We did the CT scan for that just 2 days ago. And radiation will take place at the end of this month. Throughout the whole process, my biggest mindset was never give up, stay positive, just put your best foot forward. I know these things seem cliche, but they actually work because the power of the mind is extremely, extremely important in situations like this. I've seen people, the minute they get diagnosed, they start to deteriorate. And the reason for that is because they allow the negative thoughts in their mind to take over, the what ifs, the hows, the whens, the whys. A lot of people tend to focus on those negative questions instead of focusing on the solution. It's okay to think about the problem. It really is. However, if you dwell on it too long, that's when you start to go into a sunken place and you start to just wither away. And I just want people to be encouraged and know that, listen, you have to. Yes, you'll have those moments where you think negatively. You'll have the whys. I ask questions why as well. I wanted to know how this was possible because there's no history of this in my family. There is no BRCA gene, none of those things. I hardly catch a cold. So how is it that I was able to, be or have cancer? And then on top of that, stage 4, are you kidding me? Stage 4. But, again, once I got past that hurdle and over that hump, I was back focused, and that was, like I said, my number one thing was staying positive, keeping good energy around me, not focusing on negatives, blocking out any negativity. And then I just really want people to know there's a difference. There is a really, really big difference between questioning God and asking God questions. And there's nothing wrong with asking God questions. You can ask him, why did it happen to me? But you don't have to say it, in a way that you're lamenting and you're being angry with God for this, because at the end of the day, everything happens for a reason. We hear these things all the time since birth. Everything happens for a reason. And I'm actually, I'm glad it happened to me and not anyone else in my family, because I can actually encourage other people. Other people may not have been able to do that. So I'm actually happy that it was me and not anyone else, because I would never, I have always been ignorant to things like these. and I oblivious, just passing over it briefly. I'm actually, I wouldn't say happy, but I'm okay with the fact that it happened to me, so that I can now encourage other people and I can tell them, listen, it's not the end of the road. You still have a chance. Going into the treatment, there were a lot of mixed emotions. I'm just going to be honest. I'm not all rainbows and sprinkles and everything. So there were moments where I had questions. There were moments where I had doubts. But my biggest thing was knowing the difference between questioning God and asking God questions. Obviously, I prayed a lot. My mindset was always, always, always solutions based and not focusing on the actual problem, figuring out ways that I can actually try my best to be my best and show up and get up every day and still do the tasks that needed to be done. I was very big. I've always been independent. Not by choice, but by force. I've always been pretty strong and all the cliches that you can think about. However, my biggest thing was focusing on not the negatives, but the positives. So for instance, for me, what that looked like was my brother was getting married this year, and I was looking forward to being able to be well enough to travel, because they wouldn't have given me clearance if I was exhibiting a lot of negative side effects, and if I was not well enough to travel out of the country to the Bahamas to see my brother get married. Another thing I had to look forward to was a friend of mine, a really, really long time friend. She got married earlier in the year, and she had a baby shower. So I wanted to be present for that too. So my focus was on not necessarily the future in a distant aspect, but in a more the close near future. So I was focusing on getting better for that. I wanted to be there for my children. I didn't want to miss out on any family events. It's a lot that I want to do. So I wanted to be present for those types of things. That mindset of mine, I don't know. I think I was just born different. I was always the type of person to see the good in everything. I was always a jovial person. I was always looking for fun. Obviously, my parents had me in church, and my Grammy had me in church. I would say for sure Sundays, Wednesdays, Fridays, and sometimes Saturdays. I was always in church. I grew up in a Pentecostal church, as well as I went to Catholic school. So God was always around. So that is where that perspective came from. I've always been grounded, and I've actually always had those religious beliefs. I've always had just a positive attitude. I just feel like, positivity and a good attitude. My grandmother always say, good attitude will take you through the world. To anyone who may be going through a similar situation, or any situation that kind of resembles this, I would say live your life, enjoy each moment that you have with your loved ones, with your friends. Do the things that you always wanted to do. Take this opportunity to see the positive, the beauty of life. Again, I would want you to understand that you're not alone. There are resources, and your family members, they do want to talk to you about this. They may not know or have the right words to say. However, if you are feeling any type of way, I'm sure they are willing to listen, even if they don't have anything to say in return. You're not alone. Again, another thing that if you have the opportunity to, I would like to stress the importance of insurance in situations like these. Had I not had insurance, I don't know how I would have been able to go through this, but having insurance has also given me the opportunity to have a clear mind so that I could focus on the positives. Insurance has pretty much helped me be able to focus, because if you're always worrying about money, then that in itself creates a problem. I know I've stressed the importance of having friends, family, and any loved ones around, but I know also that other people may not have that ability to reach out to someone, or you just may not want to talk to your friends and family about it. I truly understand. If you are in need of someone to talk to and share your story with, please feel free to reach out to me.